Hello and welcome everybody to episode 51, I think, of the Strip Poker Night at the Inventory podcast. I'm your host, spnanon. I love Maya Gisborne and I want to kiss her. Here with my new co-host, Corky the Cactus. Go ahead and introduce yourself, because unfortunately, Namasp is still dead, still splattered on the Midwestern highway, like he looks like a pizza. But I hear he will be soon resurrected with the power of sugar and alchemy and the Chinese Communist Party.
I'm really looking forward to Sucrose, so I'm excited.
That was my covert reference to Genshin Impact.
I must say, I've never heard it better.
That was Corky. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Corky.
Hey, I'm Corky. Y'all have probably heard me before. I made Emmy. I'm working on Charlie and Constance at some point. The April Fool's little wrench wench that we all love.
Can you please reiterate who those characters are? Again, this is not like, if you said I'm working on Asuka, I feel like that doesn't need an introduction, but
that's true. So Emmy from Katawa Shoujo,
he is working on Asuka,
the girl with no legs. Charlie from Has Been Hotel, she's the demon princess of hell who wants to redeem every sinner. And Constance is from Little Witch Academia. She is Akko's, Akko is her Dee to Dexter's laboratory, is basically who she is. She likes to hang out in her little lab and do her robot stuff. And Akko likes to try to help her, but her helping doesn't usually actually help. So she's like a little grump. She's really fun.
And she never talks the entire time?
Right, she uses her chalkboard to communicate. Go player, and then you'll know who she is.
All right. Now, once again, you might have briefly heard an unfamiliar voice, but it's from a familiar face. If you've been on the Discord, this guy's been around. He has worked on a bunch of projects. He's hardly a newbie, just a newbie to the podcast. We have Buddytibo 2. I don't know what happened to the first one, but here he is. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Yeah, introduce yourself, Buddytibo.
The original Buddytibo was actually killed, and I replaced him. We don't go too far into it, though. So, yeah, as he said, I'm Buddytibo 2. I first joined in the usual process of wanting to make an OC, and then I realized no. And now I am the...
Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah. I learned the hard way. The second I hit dialogue, it was like, whoops.
We don't have a rule against it, but you're going to get like a whole chorus of people on Discord just being like, no, don't do that.
And if you ignore it, you'll learn the hard way of why they said no usually, like I did. But so from there, I went on to actually realizing, man, this big hit game that people need to play called League of Legends, don't play it, doesn't have any representation in the game. So I decided, why not pick like one of my favorite characters from the game to not only be like an amazing first league rep. And
we had a league rep. We had original Lux.
Just. We don't talk about old Lux.
Are you sure? Because we got a good hard look at her last time.
Happy I wasn't there for that.
Is it possible to play League of Legends without getting incredibly frustrated?
I've not experienced not getting frustrated in the game, unless you're making someone else frustrated. Then you're not the one being frustrated, at least. But so I decided to make Twisted Fate, aka Tobias Felix, because he is the card swindling, smooth talking, nice dressing man from Bilgewater, and who else wouldn't be fit for a good rep from League into SPNatI.
First rep that won't send you to jail.
Yeah, and now we're on FPS.
She is doing an Irish jig on your dick.
So he's still in the sponsorship process right now. Pretty close to finally hitting main roster. And back in the rework Masquerade, I actually, speaking of Lux, helped I don't like saying I was a writer because I had a lot of issues come up that I wasn't able to do a lot, but I kind of helped set a format and a guide for the amazing people who worked on Lux, for the writers. The art was not in my control, but I kind of guided the other two writers, Nord and I never can say the word right. Is it Alias?
Alias.
Or Elias? Alias. I kind of gave them a bit of a format to follow, and after that, I kind of vanished, sadly. So those are my current projects in the game. For future projects, I kind of have an unnecessary list, like an unnecessarily long list like most people have, but the most likely I have in mind is either Leone from Akame ga Kill, which is big sis, constantly drunk, ara tiger lady. Best way to describe her. And the other character I have in mind is a combo character of Date and Aiba from AI Somnium Files, which is a great Chunsoft game. He's basically a detective who has a sleazy side to him, but it's not in a bad way. And Aiba's like,
can you post pictures of these characters?
Yeah, for sure.
In the meantime, Solitaire, can you just post that old Lux image I have, the one where she is quote unquote masturbating?
That image is going to haunt me tonight. Thank you very much. I finally got rid of that idea.
If you've ever played Team Fortress 2 and remember the spy crab, this is what this reminds me of.
No!
Jeez.
It looks like she's got like her knuckle across her clit, and then like she has like a finger up her ass, and she's just like scuttling up a hill.
And then, so Date's like a detective who goes around solving crimes, has a bit of a unknown past, and he has this awesome AI eyeball companion named Aiba, it's kind of like the typical comedic person, and then Aiba's the straight woman, trying to keep him in line and dealing with all of his bullshit antics.
So, would they be like would she be like a companion character?
Yeah, definitely. We were discussing on whether or not she'd be like, because in the source, she's only visible to Date, but we were trying to figure out if we were to add them, if she would still only be visible to him, or if we'd make her like a hologram.
Oh, I always think that's lame when like something's supposed to be invisible to the other characters.
Yeah, it makes sense in source, but if I were to add it to SPNatI like that, I'd feel like it was a cop out.
Yeah, like it's a crossover. Like, what's the point of like Jotaro taking out Star Platinum if you can't even see it?
Exactly, and if they weren't like one of the lead points of those two is they have some fucking amazing banter, because like Date is like can be an absolute perv at times. For instance, he has almost any fetish in the book. I'm not kidding. Like there's one scene where you can literally, if like when you're inspecting the room you're in, if you click the shoes, all you hear is just a deep inhale and then just a and it's like
I think you peeked out your mic a little bit on this.
Probably. Yeah, probably, but yeah, it's just a deep inhale and then like a sigh of relief, and I was just like, why?
Yeah, I don't think I just tried it. I don't think my mic picked it up either.
No. But yeah, so like if we were to
I think it's expecting an exhale.
Yeah. If you were to like make it a hologram and make it only really Date's experiencing Aiba's like back and forth, it would make it awkward for the rest of the cast too, for just like them just to see Date talking to himself, which in the actual source that happens a lot, but in this it would kind of ruin the fun.
For me, it's like the same thing with JoJo stands. Like the player can see them, so why can't everyone else?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my take. Does anyone else have like initial thoughts or stuff about their projects they want to mention?
I just want to take this moment to apologize to all people who have ever spell checked my updates, especially Solly, because if anyone were to look in the Twisted Face dev channel, anytime I post an update over 50 new lines, there's a lot of spell fixes I gotta. So I just want to take this moment to apologize to everyone who has ever had to do that.
If you get good at
It
spelling
happens.
and submit enough updates, you can be like me and just merge your own updates because the mods let me do that, and I don't have to get spell checked.
I think the closest I'll get to that is maybe 20 years in the future if I'm still.
How does it feel to have two separate Zeus models for your characters?
Okay, so like I laughed my ass off when the Masquerade teams were made, because I So like when the Masquerade teams were first made, I figured I was afraid Lux was one of the ones that didn't get an artist, to be honest, at first. But then when the teams were made and I saw Zeus was added, I just laughed. Like the instant I saw that, I started laughing my ass off. The people across my house heard me laughing. Because I the instant
Even Zeus heard you laughing.
like I saw that, I'm like, Zeus, we're just unbreakable duo. And not only have I both my models I've done dialogue for Ben Zeus models, they're both for League. Like, they're both for League of Legends.
Has he played League of Legends?
Yes, I've actually played with Zeus before.
Oh,
all right, nice.
well, that makes sense.
Is it better than Dota 2?
I personally say yes. I'm not one of the ones who hate on Dota. Dota is a much more restricting game. Like in League, you can use depending on your character, most characters can use like all your spells like plenty of times before you run out of mana. In Dota, you're lucky to use 3 spells before you have to like go all the way back to your base and shit. So it just feels less freedom wise, but the characters are still great. Like I wish they'd get back in contact with me because I want to do so many interactions with Liralay's author. I think I said that right. The Dota character we have in SPNatI, because I saw that, I'm like, this is perfect. Like I need
he is a Dota character.
Yeah, and like I saw that,
I couldn't remember which was which.
Don't blame you. The only reason I would ever know the difference is because I play one.
I haven't played League, but a lot of my buddies do.
Just don't get trapped.
Well, what I see happen is they say, "Oh, I'm going to go play a League match," and they disappear for like 2 hours, and they come back really angry every time. It's not a game I think I would enjoy. But
have you told them to play SPNatI to take the edge off?
I should. That'd be a great idea.
Go take your anger out on the League characters in the game. Watch them strip.
Instead of using Fate to kill people, you should jerk off with him.
Exactly.
Sometimes being angry is part of the fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I would know if you've ever seen me post my rage about Pokemon.
Yeah, I don't honestly understand why you do that.
What?
Like, put yourself through all that pain of the battle tower.
Oh, the battle tower is the easy part. I don't know if you know. Oh, the battle tower has like the least bullshit going on most of the time. Anyway, yeah, I've been for the better part of a year, I've been posting on Discord like my attempts to complete all the battle frontiers and all the different games that I own. It's complete bullshit. All for that shiny circle on a trainer card that no one will ever see. I don't know. It's because I never did it as a kid. So it was like, how ball crushing is this really? And it's like, yeah, I can see why I never did this as a kid.
You see, that's when you take screenshots of all of them, merge into one picture. You just merge into one picture and then pay to get it sponsored on like Twitter. That way people just see you're bragging on their Twitter. This
should probably be edited out towards the end of the cast.
Speaking of editing, I want to redo my introduction because that was terrible what I had earlier. Then Sully can edit it into the beginning. Thank you, Sully. I love you.
Don't actually do that, but sure, go ahead and reintroduce yourself.
Don't actually do what? Don't actually edit it? I don't want 2 introductions.
No! Get 2 introductions. Deal with it.
You'll fucking figure it out. Just do it.
Just give me the good one. Okay. So I'm Corky. I made Emmy from Katawa Shoujo. She's the girl with no legs that everyone knows and loves.
Okay, you nearly disappeared into the horizon there. Your voice faded away.
No!
You're still here. We can still hear you.
Okay. Well, this is going really well. I'm currently working on Charlie. She is a demon princess from hell, from Hazbin Hotel, the show with only 1 episode. Her mission is to redeem all the sinners of hell so that they can ascend to heaven, because hell has an overpopulation problem. And every year they have like a purge-like thing where they just slaughter all the sinners. And she doesn't like violence, so she wants to have a non-violent way to address the issue. And so she does that by spreading love and happiness and cheer at her lovely hotel with her friends. So she's going to be coming really soon. She might even be on testing by the time this episode airs. So
Nice.
Yeah, she's really close. I'm super excited.
Actually, that's fine.
I'm working on her with Spaceman, who you might see on Discord every once in a while. He also did. He's working on Wikipedia Chan as well. He's a very talented guy.
Corky, please.
I also made Constance from the April Fool's event.
It's Wikipedia Ton.
Wikipedia Ton, yes. I also made Constance from this year's April Fool's event, and at some point I will be putting her on main roster. Charlie's just taken priority. Constance is the silent girl with the chalkboard. She is a witch who makes robots. She's really cool and really grumpy. You might know her from Little Witch Academia, the same show that Akko is from. Akko and Constance have a really fun relationship. They're kind of like Dee Dee and Dexter from Dexter's Lab, where one is just constantly annoying the other one who just wants to help but doesn't know that their help is actually making things worse. So she's a lot of fun. I've been doing some interactions with Jem from Cool Cat with Constance. It's just been an absolute blast. So I can't wait to get her on main roster and actually get some of those stuff into the actual game.
I haven't really been following those, but the impression I get is that she's thirsting over this middle-aged man, a lot like Amy from Doki Doki Literature Club.
Let's say it seems like a lot of the girls from SPNatI just thirst over Jim. Why can't Fate get this thirst? Well, he does get it from Senko.
Well, it's because Fate wants it. That's why. But it's funny to do it with Jim because Jim doesn't want it. So he's just constantly struggling with it, and it makes for a lot of fun.
I hope you realize that everyone that's thirsting over Jim and Jim's little harem is just recreating what happened with Pit when Pit came out.
Yeah, and I think the Pit stuff is great.
You're 100% right. That's actually wow. I didn't think about that.
Because Pit was he wasn't a DILF, but he was just like this stammering, awkward kind of male character that didn't really want it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess shy internet nerds working on a porn game just see themselves in a guy who's not super confident, so they just write all the female characters to love him.
I think it's fun. I think people who don't like it need to get over themselves and learn to enjoy the fun things in life.
Nice and suave.
I think the Pit Natsuki epilogue is hilarious, and I think there should be more like it.
I don't really have a problem with them thirsting over a male character, but when they all do it, it starts to get pretty old.
That makes sense. If every character does it, it's not fun anymore.
I feel I know there's not a whole ton of male characters, but I feel like just as there's a variety of female characters, there should be a variety in their tastes and what they go for. So, every male character should get a little love from different characters. Even my girls, I don't feel the need to introduce them anymore on the podcast, but they're the Vandrids, and they don't they don't have much experience with men. Even they're you are old as hell, Jim. I'm not responding to this. He actually tried to hit on Maya a little bit in a recent Target. And all I just had her do was well, I don't have a male parent, but I'm pretty sure you're old enough to be him if I did.
And then there's Fate. In the Vandrid girls' interactions kill me, and I need to respond more and need to initiate more of them because poor Fate just instantly gets paired up with a robot.
Oh yeah. There's a character who's just like Twisted Fate in Vandrid who screws all of them over.
To a fucking T.
So they just hate him immediately.
I think it'd be really fun to have a Constance and Fate interaction where Fate tries to flirt with her to kind of fill the Jim role, but Constance is just so stubborn that she's like, well, this one likes me, so I don't like him back.
Oh my god! All I can imagine is if at the table it's both of them and Jin's there. She's like, not him. And the rest of the game is just her shit talking Fate, comparing him badly to Jim.
I don't think she would compare the two, but I think she would definitely have lots of shade to throw Fate's way.
Yeah, that's fair, and I gladly accept shade. Some of this shade I got from like I said, the Vandrid girls killed me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to hate all men. It's just they keep finding easy reasons to do so.
Oh no, go for it. Hate Fate. He's a hateable guy.
They actually kind of like talking to Jim because he's a space traveler, so they can kind of relate to him a little bit more. It's just when he actually has started to hit on them that they're a little skeevy because he's 40.
Makes sense.
I don't know. I one of the problems I've had is people thinking that Maya and Jura are a little older than they should be, mostly because of the way they carry themselves, and also because they could die every day, so that's kind of influenced how they talk and carry themselves a little. But they're basically.
I think the art makes them look a little bit older too.
How old are they?
Yeah, I could improve that. But at the end of the day, they are basically like college sophomores.
Oh, damn. No, they definitely look like they're 29.
Yeah. I was thinking, 20, 26, 27.
God damn it.
Eat your heart out, Span.
when you said people were thinking it was older, I was thinking they were MILF territory.
Well, it's still mid-20s is still too old.
They definitely don't look college age.
I don't know. I fucked it up, all right? I know I fucked up the art. Look, listen, the last time I improved their art was indeed a big improvement, so I was just happy to make their hair look kind of right.
It was.
Okay, baby steps. Anyway, it's been like 25 minutes. We should probably talk about the new characters.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, so this last time on episode 50, the Big 5-0, we talked about all the Masquerade characters who you briefly mentioned. We talked about Lux a little bit. I posted just her lovely old 2016 model for you all to enjoy.
And then drilled over the new model.
Yeah. So we've got a little bit lighter of a load this time. We have basically all the characters who have entered testing or the main roster since the podcast before last, I guess. So we're talking, I want to say like April. I'm gonna double check this, but I'm pretty sure that's about like when this first, or like how far we're going back here. Because as usual, we had a bit of a delay in recording this as we try to get everybody together.
Whee!
Let's take a look. Okay, it's about late April. The only one that's like older than that really is Wikipeton, who debuted as an April Fool's character, but later became a real character.
Yeah.
She became a real girl, and that's about how far back we're going.
Sweet.
There's also Magma Grunt, but who also debuted as an April Fool's character, and she just came out for like the summertime event, and it's a pretty quick turnaround.
We already spoke about her, right?
That's a pretty quick turnaround, so I'm gonna wait till next time to talk about her so she can get some updates.
It was just like yesterday or 2 days ago now, I believe.
Yeah. We got a little platter of new testing characters to talk about, and some main roster additions, and hopefully at the end we can discuss like upcoming projects and a little bit about the summertime event, which is going on right now at the start of July. A bunch of characters in swimsuit outfits. All right, so starting up, first off we got Takatoshi from, I believe it's 13 Sentinels, which is like a video game. I think it's on Steam.
I believe it's some kind of virtual novel.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just Google it so I don't look like a complete fool and have some information of value. It is a video game. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. 2D side-scrolling adventure.
Oh, wow, I was way off. It's not a virtual novel. Okay. Fuck, I'm the stupid one.
I wasn't really expecting 2D side-scrolling adventure from a game where they pilot where they pilot giant mechas.
What's the art look like in the game?
It's basically like they pilot giant robots called Sentinels to like defend Japan, I guess. And they're all like, I think they're all like, it's like 13 different characters and they're all time warped from different eras, I think. Let me post some promotional art here that I found.
Wow, it is highly detailed art for 2D side scroller.
Well, they're all like that now.
I haven't played a lot recently, so I guess that's just me out of the loop.
I don't know what Josuke is doing there in the top left.
Holy shit, it is Josuke.
I think Takatoshi is in the bottom right there with the long
It's
hair.
literally him. He just doesn't have purple hair.
That was probably an intentional design choice. I'm going to assume this is kind of like Evangelion, where they have to like, they all pilot robots to like defend the city or whatever. For some reason, only children can do it.
Yeah, that looks like Takatoshi in the very bottom right. Not very bottom, but
yeah. So I wouldn't say this is a hot property exactly, but I'm sure it got some steam when it came out.
I think it's pretty new.
I think it's a shame we don't have a character or the creator on to talk a little bit more about it, since let's see.
Yeah, he's very what's the word? He's very adamant. He very much likes this game. He's talked a lot of good about it, and he's honestly got me a bit interested. I know he's at least one or two people in the community server to start playing it, and they've liked it. So it seems to be a good game, and it is by Atlas. but it's a PlayStation exclusive. That's my problem.
Yeah, let's see. Published by Atlas, PlayStation 4.
Oh, so that's the same company that made Persona then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know they made side scrollers.
They make a lot of like, off the wall kind of, cool RPGs. I guess this isn't really an RPG, but released in Japan in November 2019 and worldwide September 2020. I don't know what took so long. Yeah, PlayStation 4 rated very highly, like 4.9 out of 5. Okay. 94%.
Probably it's not more upfront mainstream if it's really popular like that.
Anyway, this is Takatoshi Hijiyama from 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. Apparently, he's from the 40s. A Japanese soldier from like Imperial Japan, shifted decades into the future, his description says. And he's got to pilot a robot to defend Japan from the kaiju threat. Apparently, he's in love with like a boy called Okino, which, I mean, I'm sure fascist empires are all about the homoerotic man love.
All the time!
That's not even a joke. That's honestly pretty real. But, yeah. So the very first thing that everyone thought upon reading that description when he joined testing was, oh God, he's just going to be like horribly racist to everyone who's not Japanese. Which isn't really the case, thankfully.
No, he's not.
He's going to like start... If you put him in with like May or Marinette, it's just going to be a war crime.
Oh my God.
He's going to bayonet her.
April Fool's idea. Racist stuff.
But yeah.
Oh, I would go back so poorly.
He's a dude. He's big.
It still wouldn't be the most offensive April Fool's project.
No, he's a big guy. He pilots a robot. He's a 40s Japanese soldier. Very nationalistic. Very proud of his country. He likes yakisoba. Buddytibo, or just Buddy. What do you think about Takatoshi?
I enjoy him quite a bit from what I've played with him. He's got surprisingly an energy that well tapped. Like this energy isn't tapped too well in SPNatI yet, which is a very strong himbo energy. Very like masculine yet very fumbly and can get embarrassed pretty easily when other guys are doing stuff mostly. As you said, the yakisoba pan, I want to know why he's so fond of this thing. I've never even heard of it before I played with him. That might be me showing up as a fake weeb, and maybe that's a common thing in weeb culture. But yeah, I've enjoyed how he sounds, how he plays. I only really have like one or two complaints off the top of my head right now. One of them is I noticed like a bit of a not stiff but like limited posing on him, and that's not fair coming from me as Fate, because his posing he's a very not stiff but a very hidden man is a good way to put it.
Fate is basically a big rectangle.
Yeah,
I think Fate's posed really well. He just maybe needs a few more.
I mean that shit he does with his hat moving around and actually changing perspective is pretty gorgeous.
Yeah.
A lot of the poses were thanks to Ninja Monkey. They helped a lot with some of the posing later on, but the hat thing was Nomlet and I. But back to Takatoshi. After I noticed that, I looked into the character editor a bit, and my biggest tip after looking into that is make your poses change not so much every single stage, but like maybe once every 2 stages. Like for instance, I guess I'm going back to Fate here because he's the one I know. I have poses for him for stage 0 through 1, 2 through 4, and then 5 through 6. And then the rest is strip, like forfeit and all that. I have poses based on how his attitude kind of changes as the game goes on. And that's a really good way to like make your pose variety a bit more up there. Because like you'll see the happy pose here and like in stage 1, and then stage 3 it'll be the happy pose again, but it will be slightly different just to fit his attitude more as it shifts. That was one thing I was told early on when working on Fate. The only other thing I have about him is he does talk about his like backstory and lore a little bit, and which I appreciate, but it's kind of vague, which I guess his situation is a confusing situation from what it sounds like, but it's a bit. I just would like a bit more of a clear explanation on how everything happened, if that's known. And also, now that I think about it, it'd be cool to like get some more like input from him on the time period he's from to now, like even just in, not so much in looks, but even just in like general culture, how people act and such. Because I assume it's very different. It's very like culture shock for him.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I've really enjoyed playing games with him. I've played him on a table with Twisted Fate quite a bit. I plan on getting some interactions in there because I could see some fun interactions started. But yeah, that's my main input on Takatoshi.
I mean, that's the hook for the character, right? Is, oh, this guy's time warped from the 40s and he pilots a giant robot. Like, pretty much everything, every conversation you have with him should kind of inform that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
Or be informed by that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, that's his distinctive flavor. I'm sure yakisoba also has a distinctive flavor.
Yeah, I want to find out why he has such an addiction to yakisoba.
All right, Corky, your thoughts?
So I played him a few different times. I played him right when he came out. I played him again today just to get a fresh look at him. And the good news is I've seen noticeable improvement with his dialogue throughout his testing stay, which is a really good sign. I don't always notice that. I mean, a lot of the characters that I tested, you know, like, well, not necessarily for this go around, but I've seen that a lot of times where it's like, oh, I haven't played this character in a long time. I'm going to play him again. They're roughly the same because different developers kind of work at different paces. Sometimes it takes people a little bit, but Alias has definitely shown a lot of improvement with him with writing wise, so that's good. To Tibo's point, I mean, going off of the vague lore that he's giving, at like he does need. I think he needs to put a little bit more into that. His posing, again, to Tibo's point, is a little bit awkward at times, but I think when his like model is given another pass, I think that'll solve a lot of those issues. Right now, looking at him. I think his art actually shows good potential and promise. It's just, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Like, for example, his face kind of reminds me of, like, the Mac Finder thing, because it kind of looks like he has two separate faces that were stitched together. So, like, either side of his face looks good, but together it looks weird, just because it's kind of, like, combining a side view and a front view at the same time.
I see what you're implying.
He looks kind of like yeah. Have you ever seen like those mirror battles where like it's like a diagonal pose or some kind of dynamic pose and they mirror each side of it?
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah.
One of them turns out really wide and the other's really thin. He looks like the thin version of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a pretty simple fix, though. Once that gets cleaned up, and there's a couple other things like that I can nitpick about it. Like, I think the black on his shirt is just a little bit too dark, so it kind of makes the line work a little bit harder to see. But stuff like that's really easy to fix. There's nothing like catastrophically wrong with him. The coolest thing that I noticed with him, and this is something a lot of writers don't do, so I was really happy to see it with the new character, is that when he's stripping, he's not talking about the game. He's talking about his own things, which is awesome. And I wish more characters would do that because it's way more interesting than just explaining what you're taking off. And he doesn't do that, so that's great.
I have noticed a lot of new devs have been catching on to that too.
Yeah, and I'm really happy about that. It just makes more and more fun experience, you know? But yeah, specifically with him, again, Tibo's point about the 40s thing, and I think I put a report about this on his channel. So he talked about that like in the middle of the game, and I would just love to see more of it because I think you could really take a Captain America kind of approach where it's like, oh, he's suddenly in the present. Like he mentions that sometimes he misses the 40s. I'd like to know more about like why he misses the 40s. Like, what does he like about the 40s that we don't have today? Like, what kind of...
You could freely be racist.
Well, I mean, even taking race out of it, there's a lot of observations somebody about the 40s might make about today that would be interesting. Like, you know, like spnanon said, I think a lot of his lines should be kind of with taking that in mind. I think that should be kind of his thing. Like, oh, I'm from the 40s. I don't understand any of this shit. I mean, I think you have to be careful with it because he could just sound like an angry boomer about everything, and that would be very fun. But, you know, if you sat down and you thought about, you know, maybe he could... I don't know who this character is, so I don't know what makes sense for him. But, like, you know, I don't think it would make sense to be like Charlie and just be excited by everything. But on the other side, like, you don't want it to be too grumpy because then he's just not fun to play with.
He's like a young enough guy where I don't think he'd come off as a boomer. It's just like he's getting a new life experience.
Yeah.
I can't see him so much being a back in my day type of deal.
Yeah. You don't want to sound him like an old man.
It's basically for him like just going to a foreign country.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
What I want to know is like I'm not enough of a weeb to know this, but is Takatoshi like, is that like an old guy name in Japan? Like, like if a guy was named,
that does sound like an outer name.
if a guy was named like Carl or Ernest, that's like an old guy name now. That's like a guy who was born in the 40s. So is that like the same thing with Takatoshi?
I can see where you're coming from there, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all sound the same to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what era this name was popular. I guess I should give my thoughts. I have to agree. I think his dialogue is seeing some improvement. He's definitely not like totally bland. I say, he should talk about the 40s more because I see bits and pieces of that, and I think he should expand upon it more because that's the good stuff. I will say one of the problems with like that makes his model look really stiff and his face look kind of shifted. He kind of looks like he has a crooked nose. Is that his hair has like a piece that's like sticking out in front, and
I was just thinking that
it doesn't move with his head.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't move with the head.
Yeah. Okay. So he needs to do the Goku thing where it shifts from side to side when he changes which way his head is facing.
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know it doesn't move with the head.
Well, the big thing is like if you just took the left of his hair and made the right look more like the left, I think that would help.
Yeah, because when you pointed that out and I looked closer, I'm like, I think it literally is just because his one eye is covered a bit more than the other in a way that just barely shifts.
I saw the reference image that he looked at when he made this model, and it made a lot of sense because you could tell. I think his reference was like a 3/4 angle. So basically, he like used his reference without like adapting it to front view, and that's why he has this problem.
No, okay, I can see that issue then.
Because that piece that kind of hangs off in front, like his bangs, basically, that hangs like further out in front than the rest of it.
Yeah.
He looks like all twisted up and crooked if that doesn't move with his head. Like you can see like this GIF I posted, like how Goku's hair just like very very smoothly moves back and forth between angles.
Yeah.
I did that with Maya by having two different like models with her hair facing different ways, and now I just see it everywhere now. Now that I realize that so many characters do that.
Yeah, Marceline does that too. I can show
Marceline
you.
has to do that with all those fucking angles. All those angles that she has. Holy shit!
Oh, yeah, I worked on Marceline too. I forgot to mention that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's just something he needs.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I was lucky with Fate. He doesn't have much for bangs. It's all in the back.
Yeah, it's easier if your character is symmetrical.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think this goes for like a lot of characters at the moment, where they're like, I'm going to bring this up again, or at least I intend to, with other characters that are currently on testing or have just joined main roster. I see them following the advice that I give and that Corky gives about, not always talking about the game and bringing up kind of unrelated subjects for conversation or just inner thoughts, which is good. You should do that. However, the transition in and out of them is a little stilted. Like you want some indication of like why they thought about that thing.
Yeah.
Or like why they're bringing it up. Or even just like, you don't just launch into a conversation topic without kind of feeling it out a little bit. So, where have you, or he wouldn't just like launch right into yakisoba pants or whatever. He'd be like, hey, what's everyone's favorite food? Or, does the restaurant serve food around here? Or something like that. You don't want to just like launch straight into like a really dedicated topic. He'll often, like, sometimes he'll bring up like, he has like this whole inner thought about like, Okino is like kind of cute actually, now that I think about it. Which, first of all, that line plays like way too early. Like, I don't even know you, and now you're telling me like your deep inner thoughts. That needs to go like at the end. But more importantly, like that's just like a random hand line that shows up and then disappears just as fast. It's like, what the fuck was that? There was like a deep character moment he just had in the span of 2 seconds.
He went through like a 2-second character arc.
Yeah, like it's gotta be smoother than that. I know that's a lot to ask all at once, especially as you're like just learning how to write a character, but it's kind of like improving a model. It's like first you write the shitty, boring lines about gloves and bracelets, and then you improve and you start writing, more interesting lines, and then you start to smooth out the transition between them to get their voice better. It's just a gradual process.
Mm-hmm. I want to add a quick cautionary, because I also see a lot of devs kind of do the opposite problem, where they try too hard to make it sound natural and they're doing it at the expense of the actual conversation. So I think to SPNanon's point, I think it is really nice to have the good flow in there and to make sure that it's not just kind of being blurted out of nowhere. It's easier said than done. But it needs to be a balance, though, because you don't want to spend too much time trying to make the bridge. If you can't find a bridge that sounds natural, I think it is better to just kind of launch into it, because I would rather you spend the time actually talking about something interesting than like wasting half a line just to be like, oh, by the way, I'm going to start talking about this now. Like, you can just talk about it, like, depending on the what the topic is.
I think a lot of it is just like very small interjections, like "hey" or or some kind of other punctuation, where it just sounds like they're thinking of it as they speak, rather than being a canned line.
This is when watching gameplay of the original Poker Night at the Inventory is really helpful, because like that game was made by professional writers. And they had full control over all the characters. So you can kind of see how well stuff flows and how they commonly bring up random things. They'll be like, oh, so heavy. Like, I'm thinking about buying a gun. What would you recommend? Like that kind of thing, where it's like...
Yeah, but that sounds natural. That's the kind of...
It's a random topic, but it's still natural because he's connecting something they notice. That'd be kind of how to write a target.
If you're bringing something up, then like bring it up. Don't just launch into it from 0 to 60.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to start from the middle of the conversation, for sure.
Yeah, and keep in mind, especially if it's for a stripping, keep in mind, you have 3 turns of dialogue to work with. Go ahead and use your markers to make sure they play after each other. Like,
don't try to stuff everything you want to say into the first line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, like, I hate to keep bringing it up, but for instance, with Fate, when I made his dialogue for the stripping and all that based on like more backstory, first I would work on thinking, okay, how can I kind of relate this piece of clothing to memory? And then from there I'm like, okay, how can I make it sound decent across like 3 things of dialogue? Mm-hmm. So like for the like jacket, I kind of like described a bit why he dresses so fancily, like what's the reasoning to like the such extreme clothing. And for the boots, it's like, these boots are a bitch to keep clean because it bilge water, there's guts, there's blood, stuff like that. So just kind of make it flow. You've got room to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's really good advice, though, because the strip sequence is 3 cases back to back to back where your character is the main focus. And I think a lot of people don't take full advantage of that. Like you said, use markers so you can put them in sequence. You can have a line that kind of sets up the premise. And then your middle line, while they're stripping, can be kind of used to set up a joke or whatever you want to do. And then your last one can be your payoff. And that's where you're kind of concluding the whole little topic that you're doing. And that way you get 3 lines to talk about it, like you said, instead of trying to cram it all into one little thing.
Anyway, I brought this up and gave the whole spiel on it because it's not just Takatoshi's problem. He's honestly not even the worst offender. I saw it in like Amy Rose. I saw it in like Asuna Yuki. Like Asuna Yuki has a lot of lines that just like she goes into like this big description of like GGO or some other like kind of simulation or program that she's working on, and all the little ins and outs and details of it, and it's all kind of interesting, but it's like, oh cool, no one asked.
It's a hard middle ground to find as a new dev, I will say.
It's really difficult for sure.
It's good to bring those up, but you need to have some kind of transition to it. Into it. Otherwise, it's just like, where did that come from?
Yeah, you need to have something that brought the idea to their mind, kind of.
It's like she's telling all the characters about this, but she didn't preface it at all and be like, this reminds me of such and such, or you guys should all really pay attention to what I'm about to say because so and so. I have information that's of value to all of you.
I have the nuclear launch codes.
All right, I think it's time to move on. We're nearing an hour. We've done one character.
Holy shit! Okay, yeah, we need to keep going.
All right, but I mean, a lot of this was stuff beyond Takatoshi, and we don't have to repeat it.
It was actual dev tips, honestly.
So if Takatoshi was a bit of an obscure pick, a little niche off the wall, here we have pretty much the most popular Japanese character ever. We were hoping, to get a little more star power on this roster since our current champion of star power is fucking Samus. Basic bitch Samus.
Yeah.
Here we have Hatsune Miku, Vocaloid extraordinaire. Who needs real girls and real idols and real singers when you can have a hologram? The original Project Melody.
Yeah!
So here she is, who currently rocking what's basically the Kisuke default model. I believe that's why she was made. It's kind of like Shimakaze. It's because she had a default model in Kisuke. But she does have a newer one in the works that looks way better.
Oh, wow, that looks so much better!
Oh, it's way better.
If I remember correctly, I think Horse Killer is helping.
We've reached the point where like the basic even the default Kisuke models that are included with the program are not up to our standards anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, there's a whole process to literally unkisukeing a model. Like when you have a process to remove the default of a program, that's an issue.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, it's so unintuitive, and like Kisuke is so weird because, like, first of all, we're using it for something it wasn't built to do.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to dress up K-On! Schoolgirls, and like you touch them on the crotch, and then it drips a little bit, and they make a face. That's about all it was meant to do. And you like plaster a belt on their face.
Only the most intuitive gameplay.
and like Mike had a really good. He's another Discord user. He's the creator of Arafuda. He's been on the podcast. He had a really good point about Kisuke and how well, first of all, there's no text because it would be Japanese. So you have to figure out what everything does. But also, like, there's nothing guiding you in the right direction.
Nothing at all.
Like most other programs that people are used to now have like a lot of features and design, like a lot of design features to like keep people from making mistakes and to kind of guide users towards a certain direction of how it's supposed to be used, like the character editor does. Like you can't really fuck up as hard in the character editor, but you can just make a fucking abomination in Kisuke.
Yeah. The character editor kind of sets you up for failure too, but we'll get to that later.
Not as much though. Like you will at least write functional dialogue. Whereas with Kisuke, you open it up and it presents you with like this fucking unassailable lineup of like 9 default looking ass Kisuke K-On! Girls. And there is zero information in front of you. Like, how do I make anything that resembles what I see in SPNatI?
I hope someday we do finally. I know there was talk of trying to replace the defaults at some point.
Even with all that, even being a complete rookie, this creator, reached out for some feedback and made this beautiful model in like a couple days.
Yeah.
Like that's all it takes. Don't be scared of Kisuke.
It's always really good to see like a new developer like getting that first round of feedback and making something that's just like way better than they had before.
You just need someone to hold your hand and teach you how to use like hair bats and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was awesome that of all people, Horse Killer stepped up to help them.
Well, and I want to give him credit too because it's not.
Oh no, I agree.
It's not easy to like plenty of people come in like they get feedback and they still struggle with it. It's not often that a new developer will get that feedback and then suddenly like rocket into way better art or writing. Like when that happens, I think they should be applauded because it's not something that is easy to do. It shows that they have actual like really good talent and it's always exciting to see.
I'm still working on it. But yeah, Miku's dev pulled it off. Even like Ninja Monkey with Supernova. Like Supernova, if you have original Supernova, which I don't think I do, but she looked like Default Chan's like goth sister.
Yeah.
And then, all it took was some feedback and transformed into one of the cutest OCs we have, and now he's like one of our best Kisuke artists.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really good.
I think he replaced all of her old poses.
He's won like a million contests that we've run.
Yeah, he's very passionate, and I appreciate it. But yeah, Hatsune Miku.
We're talking about the wrong character.
We made our points. We made a point about her awesome piece of improvement.
Agreed.
Anyway, should I call you Tebow or Buddy?
Either works, whichever you're more comfortable with.
All right, 2.
Okay. That works.
What are your thoughts on Hatsune Miku?
So on Hatsune Miku, I'll start with my first thoughts when she was first added. So obviously my first thoughts was I was a bit caught off guard to see the default Pochi model show up. So I went, okay, I'll still give it a look, see what the dialogue's like. I do actually enjoy the dialogue a lot, surprisingly a lot. It kind of shows a more not normal, but a tamer side of Hatsune Miku that is underappreciated. Because like, kind of when you think about Hatsune Miku, you always jump to her wilder music videos and stuff. But really, she's kind of got a personality that you can take in any direction, and I kind of like the real person behind the idol take it kind of feels like. Now, I do wish there was a bit more of the wacky zany to her still. It's lacking a bit of the wildness that is obviously there and would always be in any version of her. And I think that could honestly be fixed with a bit more posing variety. I know I said that about Takatoshi, but I feel like her posing could be a bit more, not even like replace, just add some expressive ones, like more movement. Because she's not really one you'd see standing still a lot. And that's probably going to be fixed in the art update coming up soon, I'd assume.
I wonder if she had like default poses, because Kisuke has a set of default poses as well.
Really, it has default poses. I didn't know it came with like a full set of default poses in the program.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
But so yeah, that might be the cause too. And if that's the cause, then that's most likely being fixed in the future.
They didn't seem recognizably default to me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, but like, even if they weren't default, like I said, just a few, like maybe 2 or 3 poses with a bit more expression into them, because you rarely see her standing still unless it's like a really somber song, and even she doesn't have a lot of those, and the somber ones are still crazy.
You'll find that it's a lot easier to pose when you just have a better looking model.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I don't have a lot of changes on dialogue I'd request, other than, like I said, a bit more oomph, a bit more, not zaniness, but a bit more emotion. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of lines that need play once markers. I had to reset games a few times when I was looking at her because someone would like start a prompt, and every time Dia had any line, she would answer that prompt again and again and again, and I've made that mistake. So just like go through your like prompt responses and make sure most of them are, if not all of them, are play once.
She just wants to make sure you heard her.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the one I saw the most was a response to Colress asking if she can play a song. It was Beep something, I don't remember, but she kept saying like she can't play that song, so she really wanted Colress to know I don't know that song.
Yeah. It's a really common and easy mistake to make. Unfortunately, you only need to make it once, and then suddenly that's the only line that plays.
Yeah. But that's all that's my main input on Hatsune Miku. That hasn't already been said in our little talk about the art and everything earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You just it's something you just got to get into the habit of remembering.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Hatsune is really cute, and she's got a nice consistent voice, which is always good. I mean, because that's not easy to do. We kind of take that as a given, but sometimes it's really difficult to have like a very consistent voice where you pick any line and you can tell it's that character. We've had some characters in the past who kind of would flip-flop between 2 different personalities, so it's good that hold on, I gotta remember who made this character. Tweetsy12. Good on you for actually, for getting that voice down. I think you've done a pretty good job there. I think a lot of her dialogue is still a little bit on the generic side. When I said earlier that the character editor sets you up for failure, what I mean by that is when you open it up and you are writing new lines, it tells you for each case, this is what the character says when they are doing this. This is what the character says when someone takes off their shoe. It's really easy to sit down and just write a reaction. And I could see that in a lot of her dialogue where it's really reactionary. She's not really telling us anything about herself or showing us her personality. She's basically just responding to what's happening. And that can work in some situations to make your character look aware of what's going on. But if you do it too much, then they're just kind of the reactionary character and they're not really showing you who they are. I mean, when I was finished...
Yeah, they're really passive. They don't like bring any of their own ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And by the time I was done playing with her, like, I didn't really learn anything about her. Like, I know who she is just because she's so famous, but I don't know anything about her. And I still don't really know anything about her after playing with the game. So she needs more dialogue just to kind of, like, instead of just reacting to what's happening, just, like, giving us something. You know, she can have, you know, like spnanon says a lot of the times, to have an opinion on something. She can have an opinion on what's happening.
Actually, I've just recently said that for the first time.
Right.
But I was going to bring it up.
I thought it was like a month or two ago.
No, it was like a couple weeks.
Oh. Well, either way.
Anyway, yeah, that's what I was going to add to that point. It was recently I had the thought, like, how do I really succinctly say this? Because we always go into this big spiel about not commenting on the game too much. And it really is, I think it's just like, have an opinion. If you're going to talk about someone taking off their shoes, please, like, have an opinion on that topic and not just, you know, never say something that's like either not saying anything at all or is just like an irrefutable fact that everyone can see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, that you want your character to have some kind of agenda, some kind of opinion, some kind of like agency or something that they want or think others should want.
Yeah, what are they passionate about? I don't know what she's passionate about, and I should after playing with her. That's the biggest thing.
It's not foolproof because you could go, oh, I really like your shoes. But even it's not really that developed of an opinion. If she had like some kind of complex thoughts about like certain shoe types, or like, you know, the owners, you know, my creator has always made me wear this certain type of shoe because it does this and that. Now you're starting to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the character editor kind of locks you into that kind of writing, because you see like, oh, I have to write something about this character taking off their shoe. Well, I guess I can say I like him. It's one of those things that's really easy to fall in that trap. And once you write in the character editor more often and you kind of get the hang of it, you kind of stop doing those things. So it's more of just a beginner, like, new writer thing rather than like an actual character flaw for her. It's just one of those things we all have to learn.
It doesn't have to be about their shoes at all, but that's at least the starting point to like have an opinion on the subject. Never just be like, well, it's time to take off your shoes, I guess. Never say I guess. That's just like...
Yes. If you ever say I guess or I suppose, like, reread your line like 5 times and make sure they're actually saying something interesting, because 90% of the time it's not.
Is that them talking, or is that you talking as a writer being like, well, I guess I'll write, I guess that's the line.
That's usually what it is.
I gotta go back to a lot of my lines then, because Fate uses I suppose a lot, but that's but that's also...
I've written those lines too. Like, you can go through Emmy and control find guess, and I'm sure you'll find plenty of them, because I was very guilty of doing the same thing. And Spinon's right. It's totally you as a writer saying, I don't know what I'm going to write, so I'm just going to say I don't know what I'm going to say.
I mean, sometimes a character does phrase things like that, but you can use I guess on a good line.
Yeah, that's with Fate. See, I never used I guess.
Yeah. It's not impossible, but that's why you got to be careful. And if you say that, you got to like triple, quadruple check and make sure you're actually saying something worth saying.
Yeah. Is this in the voice of like your popular, you know, interesting character that you're writing that has like a very defined voice that people love, or is this you as like awkward nerd struggling to make conversation and going with the first thing you think of? Sure is nice weather out.
I've never used I guess with Fate, but I used I suppose in the way of that's just part of his slang.
I do declare.
Yeah, like I do say.
Brad.
But yeah, so
it's just an easy habit to fall into.
At least that has some texture to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Never say that. Never say something that's like no one can really argue with it. You know, like never say like, you know, you'll take this off and you'll only have this left, and I have, you know, 2 more layers than you. Like, what are you, a robot?
Yeah.
Stop counting people's layers.
And he cries in the background.
There's no opinion there.
One more thing I'd like to touch on. Tebow brought this up earlier when he talked about how he liked how normal she seemed, and it made her feel more relatable. I would kind of take this is just where Tebow and I disagree. Because I would go the opposite way and really play into the craziness she has, because I personally think there's already a lot of kind of normal, regular girls in the game, and Hatsune Miku is like a very not normal person. I mean, she's like a hologram idol. So like I would personally advise like really running with it and taking full advantage of any craziness she has, because it might help her stand out. But I do see where Tebow's coming from with the relatability. I think that's really nice to have in a character. It makes them feel more like an actual person that you're playing with. So there is a balance that goes into it, and if that's the direction the writer wants to go, that's totally fine. You don't have to do everything that I want to do. But I think that is interesting though, because it does kind of show where the subjectivity kind of comes into play. And the best advice I can give is with choosing directions like this to go is whichever one you do end up choosing is to make it the right decision and just really run with it, whichever way you go, and not to play halvesies. Like just pick one and run.
All right. Any extra thoughts on Hatsune Miku? I know we once again launched into more of like a general writing discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of have like basic writing issues, then that kind of comes to the forefront.
Don't worry, my character like 5 will get all the basic tips out of the way. Don't worry.
And I do want to reiterate that with Miku, it's not like she's badly written or anything like that. Like I think she has a consistent voice. I think there's good stuff in there, and I definitely see potential in the writing there. It's just the only problem she has is basically the same mistakes that everybody makes with their first character. And which is a good thing. That's the mistake you want to make. If it's the same mistake everyone makes, then that means that it's totally fair to make it. So she just needs more time in the oven, and I think she's going to be a really good character at some point.
I really hope. I really want to see her get her art update. I really want to see her succeed because she's a really high-profile ad. Anyway, moving on to from Hatsune Miku to a game that apparently nobody played.
Yeah, I didn't even know what the source was.
Skies of Arcadia, who's like is like a GameCube game. It's like a GameCube RPG about like airships and stuff. Am I getting that right?
I believe so. I believe she's some kind of there's some kind of sky pirate thing going on in it.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've heard, it's like the little bit of information I actually have heard on the game.
This is like Fina. She's like a priestess, sort of. Or at least she's kind of dressed like a priestess. Silver Civilization, Valuan Empire, Moon Crystals, typical RPG stuff.
Oh, God.
I think Skies of Arcadia has a reputation as kind of being like a hidden gem. I remember reading like Nintendo Power as a kid, and I think they were always shilling it as like one of the games that they like the writers liked, but nobody ever played. All the guys who wrote for that magazine all had like their little pet games that they all took every opportunity to shill.
Yeah.
They're very incensed that nobody played them. Yeah, I don't think it sold too well, but she is very cute.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
Well, since you agree so much, why don't you tell us about her?
Gladly. So, after going through playing some games before getting on here today, I wish I played more games with Fina. On Source, I've never heard of before I actually played with her at the table, and I absolutely have fallen in love with her. One of the biggest things that dragged me in was the combination, and this was done very well in the writing, like props for this. The combination of like the flusteredness of the situation, but she still was very clearly excited. Like she's like, like it's kind of indecisive, but not in the bad way. It was indecisive in the way of this is going to be new. This is going to be something different to me.
She didn't make it weird.
No, but yeah, exactly. And like she's like, this is new, but this looks fun. This looks interesting. And like as the game progressed, her thoughts went from just like this could be risky to give me Like she went horny mode at certain points, and I sat there. I'm like, okay, this is great. Like the flustered yet horny, good dynamic. The little robot buddy that comes out after stage. The little robot buddy that comes out at like stage 2 or 3. What's his name? I think it says on the art. Pupil? I think is the little robot buddy's name.
Pupil
scares me half to death. That stare. Yeah.
That's a pretty typical Japanese robot buddy.
I just the blank stare, and I don't know if that's a smile. I don't like.
He reminds me very intensely of like I want to say it's like an enemy from like Smash Brothers Brawl's like Subspace Emissary.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
This is like a metal sphere that like spins around like little blades.
And at first I'm like, okay, that's cute. And then I noticed it never changed its expression. It just kind of hovered around her, and it just stares.
It's like a really creepy version of like Rensoho-chan from Kamikaze.
Exactly. But the fact that it just hovers around and has what I think that's a smile. I don't know, but it just has that really like wide like smile. And
it's making like the Jim face from The Office.
But the thing that really made me sit there and like stare directly at it and like yeah, that's a good comparison.
The longer I look at it, the funnier it is.
But the thing that really caught me off guard is when she was in like the masturbating part, and it just was still there staring. It's like it's staring at you like I know what you're looking at. I know what you're watching. I know what you're thinking. And it's not Cash Money at all. And I'm sitting there crying at it, judging my horny thoughts. I feel the stare of God in his eyes. And again, I really like just genuinely like unknown source, yet I fell in love with the character. That's a great way to like get me interested. And one thing, I don't know if a lot of characters do this because it's been a while since I've sat down and played a lot of games of SPNatI. She continues sitting after her forfeit, which I kind of genuinely like.
Oh, every character needs to do that. Or at least don't take the exact same position you had when you were naked. That's very boring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something I personally actually really need to fix on Fate, because he goes right back to standing up. And even if you want them to stand up after, give a few turns of them still sitting after the forfeit, at least, I think. And that's something I need to do for Fate.
Mm-hmm.
Even though spnanon is against male sitting forfeit.
I think he's like pretty much the only person who's vocally against it. I could be wrong.
It just looks fucking goofy.
It looks a lot better. Nobody does that while they're standing up.
I guess kneeling's an option.
I don't know. I think it's good it's a good pose for a man. It's very like authoritative and masculine. It's like, yeah, I'm just jerking off. Take it in.
I feel like you're gonna look like a bridge troll if you do it standing up.
What's wrong with that?
I think it's nice when characters sit after it, because it kind of is like, just at first glance you can tell they're not in the game anymore.
Yeah.
So it's also good just for like gameplay sake, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a better word for it, but
also I just looked at the picture, the screenshot from in game. She has 4 collectibles. I did not know that.
Ooh.
Maya can have like 26 or 28 or something, and I have 1. I can't think of any.
I know she doesn't have, I don't think she has an epilogue, so I wonder what those other collectibles are. But my ending thoughts is just genuinely really like the character, really excited to see more of her. Already like 2K lines plus. I've yet to even hit 1.5K on my character, so good job there. Like, really well fleshed out character for testing. Is she in sponsorship yet?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
Go sponsor her. Listeners, go sponsor her right now.
Oh, she not have full 5 yet?
I don't think she does.
I think
I think she has 4.
every character that has like a robot buddy in canon has like brought them in SPNatI to like buzz around for a little bit. It makes me think that like Maya and Jura should have their robot buddy come in.
They have a robot buddy?
The annoying little shit. Yeah.
It's Puro.
Of the little bit I watched, I need to get back to watching it because I do actually kind of enjoy it. Other than the stock explosions, that makes me laugh my ass off. I do remember him faintly. It's been a while since I watched.
He's just a little flying robot buddy. He actually has like a man's voice because he was originally like on the men's ship.
Yeah.
He's typical like annoying, plucky comedic relief. The reason I didn't really ever want to bring him in before was because one, I was shit at Kisuke and couldn't make him, but two, because he'd probably just like blab about it to the crew members. Yeah, he's kind of funny. He's like weird. He like one of their crew members is like pregnant, and he gets all obsessed with the idea of her baby because it's like as big. The baby is as big as he is. So he like when it's born, he spends all of his time raising her and like babysitting.
Okay, that's actually wholesome.
He calls the kid Puro too.
That's actually great. That raises him in how much I like that character now.
Well, they gave him something to do at least.
Yeah, they gave him actual character, not just I'm annoying.
But he like sidles up to her when she's pregnant and like starts rubbing her belly, and it's like keep Puro too safe.
That's great. But yeah, that was most of my input on Fina. Great character. Excited for more.
Fina's a standout. She's definitely a standout. And right from the beginning, too. When I was testing these characters last, a lot of the times when I test characters, I play with like almost no clothes on, so I don't have to worry about actually playing, and I can just focus on reading dialogue. And she was actually like, whoa, you came shirtless, dude. What's going on? And like actually talked about it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And she shows a lot of really good game awareness throughout the game. And I'm not like SPNatI and I were talking about this before we started recording that, it's not necessarily, I think he said that it's not his like biggest priority, and it's not mine either, but it is a way to kind of put an extra cherry on top sometimes when like they respond to specific scenarios, because it's really rewarding as a player when you do something like that and the character actually acknowledges it. But she's not good because of her game awareness. She's good because she has interesting things to talk about. She talks about them in a way that's really in character, like for whoever she is. Again, I'm not familiar with this character. I've never even heard of this game. I thought she was a Zelda character until you guys were talking about it. So that shows how much I do about it.
I can see it. I can see that.
Yeah, she kind of looks like a Zelda character.
Yeah, and she doesn't even fit like a new niche in the game. There's plenty of ENF like royalty, like innocent type characters in the game, but she just executes it so well that she still like is a fresh like take on a new character. So
she kind of works in that she's embarrassed, but she doesn't make it weird or uncomfortable.
Yeah,
she's still happy to be there despite being embarrassed and inexperienced, which is very refreshing.
Yeah, and she's not embarrassed in the way of oh no, this is happening. Oh no, it's like an embarrassed of well, this is new.
She's accepted what's going to happen, but it still makes her nervous.
Yeah,
it's like a happy embarrassed.
So it makes sense, but it's not like gosh, why are you here? Kind of thing.
She's embarrassed, but she's kind of like proud of herself for doing it.
Yeah,
that's a very good way of putting it.
And her forfeit dialogue is excellent. It's really really good.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, the transition to horny is very good transition.
Yeah. It's just overall, there's just a lot of quality and a lot of hard work from both writing and art with her. So she really is a standout. And there's a reason why people, when, people were sponsoring her, everyone was like kind of like they were going nuts about how good she was. So I was excited to finally get to play her. And when I did get to like get my first impressions, I totally understand why people are giving her so much praise because she definitely deserves it.
Yeah, like honestly, when I opened her up in the character editor just to like talk to her and target her, it was like kind of blew my mind a little bit how many like special condition cases she had. It was all over the place. Like I've been writing at this game for 3.5 years and I can't keep track of this. This is a new writer? Damn. I really like what I've seen of her so far. I wish I had played her a little bit more. I'm sponsoring some other characters, or at least one other character, because I need to at least occasionally sponsor people. I try to let others do it because I don't want it to be like just the devs circle jerking each other. But that's all that ever happens because we're the only ones who ever sponsor anyone.
Well, we're the only people who actually put effort into it.
Everyone else just like gives like 100 upvotes to like some random ass screenshot of the game. But yeah, I really liked what I've seen of her so far, just because she has that take of being embarrassed without making it weird for everyone else. I will say she's almost like she's so like inexperienced, because I think kind of the implication is that she's not fully human, or she's like from some kind of weird ancient race.
Now you say it, I can see it in the way her dialogue kind of comes out.
She kind of views, that's the thing, like I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure how much about that she actually shares, or how much of it is even nailed down in canon, but that I kind of get that sense she comes off as a little robotic sometimes. Or like kind of alien, where she's seeing humans through alien eyes, like.
Because like I remember one specific piece of dialogue that stuck out to me earlier today of like something like saying like the specific words "human body" came out, and I didn't question it at first, but now that you mention it, maybe you're right there.
I think that's what she's doing, and but a sign of a good character is that I want to play with her more to learn more about that.
Yeah,
because it doesn't keep her from being like cute or sexy in my eyes.
No, yeah, I agree.
I will say she's a little stiff sometimes. Sometimes I feel like there's a lot of lines where she's just like holding that neutral pose where she just kind of has like a blank smile. And I feel like that's kind of like what makes her feel a little robotic sometimes, is that she almost always has like her calm pose, like this, even when she's like, if you have like a long line, like more than a couple words, I feel like your mouth should be open on the pose to show that you're talking a lot. Otherwise, I kind of get like a visual disconnect.
Yeah, I understand that.
She's kind of got some like long involved lines, but like her mouth is closed and she's not making much of a face. But I do really like what I've seen, and she does get into it enough where she's not like weirdly asexual or anything.
Yeah. Well, here's a little natty secret. A lot of characters that have a lot of personality, like Miko, for example, it's not all the writing that the personality. A lot of it is from the posing. It's incredible, how you can change a line just by changing the pose.
Well, so much of human interaction is in the face, and reading people's faces. So if the face doesn't have much going on.
No, I will say on the topic of her posing, she was another one I looked into the character editor a bit. She has a different pose for every fucking stage, by the way.
Oof.
Like every stage, now they're not always the biggest difference, but there is still a shift, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, is there? Let's put that to the test. Here's 0 calm, 1 calm.
I did that with Emmy, and I'm never doing it again. Just as a developer. It takes so much work to do a different pose for every stage.
Was I wrong? Was I way wrong?
I don't know. Looks the same to me.
Oh shit, was that? I could have, maybe. Damn. I was
too calm.
Okay, maybe I was way wrong, but I was clicking through like all of them and they were shifting. Like I was clicking my arrows randomly through her poses and they always shifted, like even when going down.
Let's try happy. So we got 0 happy, you got 1 happy.
Okay, I'm wrong. I accept my failures. My bad. Just trying to give more praise to a character.
They might be a little bit different. Hold on.
Nah, I think that's just...
Don't you hate when you get destroyed by facts and logic?
Oh, fuck facts and logic. But actual praise that I know is true, even with my lack of information. You touched on it a bit, spnanon. I saw it was talk in the server, in the community server for a bit. I
see I wouldn't be welcome in any like conservative circles because you said something and I immediately questioned it and went to evidence.
Oh no, you did. That was very fair. That would have been wrongful praise.
I don't think they'd appreciate that hot take.
But I haven't looked too much into
let's analyze this.
I haven't looked too much into it, but there was talk specifically. I noticed the new Monica dev was really impressed by it and actually asked for help with it. Fina's marker game is insane.
Absolutely.
And you talked a bit on it, spnanon, as well, but her marker game, holy shit, she remembers so much.
That's another reason why I think she's a robot.
Yeah, like, when I didn't notice it at first because I didn't play her for a while, but when I looked in the chat when people were popping off about it, and they said, like, I looked into it, and the amount of persistent markers, and, like, I'm still working on fixing my fucking collectible for beating Fate 3 times in a row. I've still yet to fix that. It's been months. It's just a few markers, and I still can't get it down. Meanwhile, Fina has like markers upon markers upon markers of memory, and I'm sitting here like, guess I'll die.
I know your pain.
Yeah, it's never been my intention to like create an AI for this game. Like at the end, I just want to present like a fun, appealing character, and if she repeats herself or doesn't realize something a little bit, that's okay. It's just a game.
And that was even a topic in the chat because people were like saying, "Oh, I should do this," and it's like, no, I don't think we don't think too many characters should do that because a lot of people kind of play SPNatI for the reset on every game. Like, yeah, maybe some persistent stuff. Like New Game Plus was a really good thing with Nami.
Yeah, like I generally write from the perspective of like this is their first ever game with the character.
Yeah, and that's a very good, like a very safe like option to take.
Yeah,
so
I think I think if you're gonna do something like that, it needs to make sense for your character, and not just in that they remember things, but like they should have a purpose for doing it. For example, like if I did it with Charlie, I wouldn't have her just remember random events. I would have her like speak like kindly about a character she had played with before. So, for example, if you played with Pinkie Pie and then you played with Charlie with other characters, she might say, "Oh, you know who I really like? I really like Pinkie Pie because blah da da da." Like that's really in character for Charlie because she likes to talk about things that make her happy, and she likes to talk about positives in other people.
Yeah, and that works as long as it's in character.
The way I see it, the casual mindset is, you blow your load to one girl. There's like 100 other girls on the table. You're probably going to go to the next one. So you want that really strong first impression.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of robots, here's a guy who trains robots.
Woohoo! Is that what he does?
Kind of.
I don't know a lot on Colress because I don't know a lot on Pokemon.
I don't know. He has steel types.
Oh, okay.
And so they're kind of robotic. He has like a Metagross. Do you know Metagross? That's basically like a big robot spider crab.
I know Pokemon by name because I did play like a little bit of Black and White. I think that was the only Pokemon game I actually played. That's one thing I'm uncultured in because when I was younger, that was something my parents didn't get me. I had the Game Boy and everything, but I just never got Pokemon.
This is Colress, the evil team leader. Spoilers from kind of the leader from Pokemon Black and White 2. So the sequels to Black and White.
Oh, see, I never even played Black and White 2. And Black and White, I never even finished. I think the last part I got to was fighting, I think, is his name N?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the game, in SPNatI as well. Fighting him on the Ferris wheel. That was as far as I got.
We have a lot of Gen 5 representation.
We have a lot of Pokemon, I've noticed.
Pokemon makes sense because there's a lot of characters, but like we got N, we got Elisa, we got Colress, we have a certain other character we'll be mentioning later on. Yeah, this is a Colress. He's another male character. He's like a lab coat. He's like a scientist. He's got a big lab coat. He's got like a little work tablet thing. He's always running experiments. His whole thing in game is like he's very dedicated to science, even to the point of like being amoral. Like all he wants is for like to draw out the most power from Pokemon by whatever means necessary. So that means like if he has to be evil to do that, he'll do it, and he's like completely open to like if the protagonist like love and care is like better for that, then he'll do that too. So he's just like the idea of like this completely amoral scientist,
like a chaotic neutral.
He's the Werner von Braun of Pokemon.
What?
The rocket scientist who was one of the Nazis.
Oh, I didn't even hear what you said.
Well, Sully gets to edit that out then because nobody heard it.
Yeah, but that's his whole thing. Like he has like a machine that's like Pokemon Viagra that just like energizes them and like makes them get up when they're sleeping.
He just instilled so much fear in my mind with those two words side by side. That's a word combination I never thought I'd hear, and I really wish I didn't. Pokemon Viagra.
That's basically what it is, though. Like that's the full extent of like of what you do with it. Black and White 2's story is a little goofy. It's a little undercooked, honestly. I mean, it's fun, but it's a little,
yeah.
Like the extent of his machines is like there's a big crustle in the way of like a cave exit, and he's just like, here, use this to wake it up, and it just wakes it up, and that's it.
Okay.
It's like the Poke Flute waking up Snorlax.
Okay, that makes sense. That's actually one of the few Pokemon knowledge things I have because this is such a common knowledge.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. Anyway, so here he is, the amoral scientist here to jerk off.
Tom.
with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you like lined up a whole bunch of SPNatI or Pokemon characters in front of me, Colress might be one of the very last ones I'd expect to ever get into the game. I didn't think he was like anyone's husbando. He's got Internet Explorer hair. That's weird.
I never made that connection.
That's what makes it fun. A lot of those characters a lot of the times are the most fun when you can tell like nobody else would have made this character, because then you know that the writer really cared about him.
I mean, that's the beauty of SPNatI, right? Like that's the pitch. That's what you want to see, is someone who's really passionate about a character.
I mean, one of our top characters is from a barely known anime.
Hey, fuck you, man. You post that shit up. You posted something about Vandred on like, 4chan's Mecha board or whatever, and it was like, oh yeah, I remember that show. It's not like nobody saw it. It's just like it came out and then people stopped talking about it because it was over. That was it.
Wow, that hair just makes me think Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's very Yu-Gi-Oh! Hair. I'll agree with that. It's pretty out there even for like a Pokemon design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. When I see Gen 5 and like people simping over the male characters, I mean N makes sense because he's like a Bishonen pretty boy. I expect N because every girl who plays that game is be like, I can fix him. Even gets us a little bit because people like evil bastards. I don't know. Colress.
Yeah, but isn't that N's dad?
Oh, Corky died.
Isn't that, doesn't he have some relation to N though? Gets us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Corky died. Hopefully he'll return.
Hopefully.
I can't believe these co-hosts are just dropping like flies.
It's a curse.
First I'm Asp and now Corky.
Oh fuck, am I the co-host? No.
Anyway, go ahead and say what do you think about Colress?
Okay, so again, another character I don't know a lot on from the start. So it was kind of a blind look into him for the first time. I definitely enjoyed his feel, the kind of, as you said, amoral approach even is shown in the dialogue a decent bit. He kind of just seems to be there for his own goals. I don't know why, but the first thing that went through my mind when I looked at his model was, I like the lab coat. It just looks pretty good, in my opinion. And I'm a man who likes my coats, as Fate's was a really difficult coat. My biggest thing, though, is, and I think he was working on fixing it, was he kind of does still fall a little bit in the Kisuke basic. Not as much as most, but like he kind of has the Kisuke 5 head a little bit. And the classic issue with male characters in SPNatI, he still has a bit of a feminine shape to him a little bit.
Yeah, that's hard to get past in Kisuke.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just hidden a little bit by his lab coat at first.
Exactly, and I didn't notice it until he stripped like a bit more down, and I was like, there's some hips.
Yeah. Kisuke just gives them all birthing hips.
Exactly. And that was that's a good example there. And that was something I had to push through with Fate, and any male character really had to push through. And
he's got a large penis because of course he does. He's people with their husbandos, they always give him massive dicks. No one's ever average.
I gave Fate a somewhat average one, I think, if I remember correctly.
Oh really? Let's put that to the test with our facts and logic.
Oh fuck! You sent me the facts and logic again.
Solitary. The size of the sensor will determine that.
Does it get sense like? It's not the word. It's not insane.
For a flaccid dick, that's pretty big.
Yeah, but now go to erect. I specifically made him a shower. I remember you guys talked about that in the.
You just want me to post more of Fate.
But yeah, back to the man of the hour, of course.
I'm sorry, but he just looks goofy sitting down.
Maybe I'll change that. Maybe I'll make it kneeling instead. I don't know.
Oh, don't do that. His poor knees.
One thing I'm pretty sure most others do it too, but I go into the character editor a lot to look at a character after I play them, and I notice at the end, because he won the game I played with him. His the opponent masturbating lines are stage locked. And not only are they stage locked, each stage only has, well, at least for the males, each stage only has one line with words, and the other line is a blank line.
Yeah, don't do that.
Stage locking lines is good. Don't get me wrong, because the same thing that it does with making your poses change with stage. But if you stage lock it before you have a big enough pool to select from, it's gonna get messy. It's gonna get the opposite of messy. It's gonna get way too linear. Where like I was the last one to lose in the game, and all I saw from him was the same line repeated, or just a blank, like no dialogue in him posing. So that is a definite fix as soon as possible if you can. Now this might be better for him. The next thing I'm about to talk about, this is because I don't know the character. Compared to other Pokemon characters in the game, he doesn't actually talk about the Pokemon as much as others I've noticed. And like his goal with the Pokemon. Like as you mentioned, he seems to be interesting with his reason for working with Pokemon. Unless I missed it, he doesn't seem to talk about that too much.
I mean, there's only so much you can say about it because there are no Pokemon.
That's fair, and it gets repetitive, and that's one thing I have issue with targeting.
Kind of the problem that all Pokemon characters have is that their entire world is all about like worshiping Pokemon. Basically, they all talk about them all the time, but there aren't any.
And that's why I always get so like when I see a new Pokemon characters added, because I always try to send like a target or two to new characters when they're added. And when I see a new Pokemon characters added, I'm like, how do I send another target that's not just asking what Pokemon are?
Yeah, that's a big problem. You know, like,
yeah,
they can talk to each other.
Oh yeah, they can talk to each other perfectly fine.
Colress knows what a Garchomp is, but nobody else does.
See, surprisingly, like speaking of that, Cynthia is one of the few Pokemon characters I have had extensive targets with. But another thing with Colress...
Well, I do declare, who is this fine, tall, blonde drink of water?
All right, I'm hiring you as my new writer. Bye. But no, I don't know if this is intentional. I noticed his head is tilted 75% of the fucking time.
Colress?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you want a little head movement. You don't want it to be like perfectly centered.
I mean tilted to the same angle. It's always tilted slightly. If I'm in his position, it's always tilted slightly to the right. You know, he's a curious guy, I'm assuming, so it kind of makes sense for him to kind of have like a But if you look, a lot of his poses kind of tip his head in that same direction.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if that was an intentional thing with his character, or if that was something that just kind of accidentally happened. Because I did that with my leg posing on Fate a lot, where I'm like, okay, spread it like this angle, and I look, I'm like, that's the same fucking angle of another pose I just did.
I think his posing and his art is just a little typical right now, and that it's just kind of stiff.
Yeah.
It just takes some time to get used to it and knowing how to loosen it up properly. I mean, his hair is kind of default right now. You can see all the hair pieces and the default base for the blonde stuff. His forehead's a little too big. Glasses aren't quite right. All like his facial features are kind of like low down on his head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just a starting point.
Yeah.
You know, I'd expect him to probably get a model update at some point. I mean, you can at least tell it's him. Because he looks pretty distinctive.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest gripe.
Like there's no like shading or like ripples or folds on any of his clothes, or like the lining of his coat needs like an outline and all that. Because right now it's just like white and then straight to the gray black of his pants, like without any transition.
Yeah, and as you said, making them recognizable as the character is the biggest thing that you should always like try to be on top of. And I remember you were one of the first people to point this out. I struggled with that with Fate.
Oh yeah, Fate used to look like a Neanderthal.
He used to, as you said, he used to look like Jesus. And I struggled with that 100%. So
it couldn't have been easy.
So the fact that he's already a recognizable character to his source, good job. But yeah, so it's a good starting point, as you said. It just has the definite room where he can expand on it. Corky's still dead.
I think that about covers that. I would say, his whole character. I think another reason I didn't expect Colress to ever make it in is that he's a pretty asexual character in terms of like he doesn't interact with humans a whole lot in general. Like that's just not his thing. He's all about studying Pokemon. So it's difficult to adapt that to like a medium where all he does is talk with other people the whole time.
Yeah.
Because, like, what is he really getting out of this? Does he, what is his sexuality? How does that even play into like what he does? You just don't know a whole lot about him. And I think that could still be addressed a little bit more in some of his targets because he is there, so to speak, to like study like the interactions between people. But it's like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
You're going to measure their heart rate when they're like masturbating? Like, I don't know.
You just put the image in my mind and I can only imagine the uncomfortableness of just all of a sudden, like you're just going at it and someone just comes up with like a stethoscope and just, what are you doing?
I want to see him like trying to like attach electrodes to people who've lost.
Listen, that's not my kink. Electroshock.
All right, hold still. All right, deep breaths. Deep breaths. Tell me what you're thinking right now.
I'm thinking this is fucking awkward, bud.
Yeah. All right. So that's just what I want to see a little bit more. I just think he needs more work, more time in the oven. He needs a Colress machine to wake him up from his slumber. I mean, he's getting regular updates, so I'm curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah,
very, very off the wall character pick. All right. So before we move on, I don't know. Corky seems to have died. I think he's just busy. He must have got caught up with something.
Yeah.
So no offense, but I don't want to just like plow through half of this podcast without him.
Fair. That's fair.
We should probably just take a break, especially because we've already gone pretty long.
Yeah. I think we're an hour and a half in, a bit over.
Yeah, honestly, this really flew by. I didn't feel like if we had gone that long.
It's not like we've wasted time much. It's we just had some really good input of these characters so far already.
Yeah. So if you're fine with that, we can just like, I don't know. Eventually, Corky will come back, hopefully, unless he died, and then we can continue where we left off. Obviously, we'll invite you back.
Yeah.
You've been a great guest so far.
Thank you much. I've been enjoying it.
All right, so thanks for coming on. I'm just going to have Craig leave in a second, and I think we'll just have Solitaire cut this off. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Probably just do like the classic episode 51 and then episode 51.2, like 0.5 and all that shit.
51.5? Yeah, I think that's fine. So,
only got fucking 4 characters.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Solitaire, try to cut out a little bit of that meta discussion in there.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We will return with a full cast again. Corky will return to us, hopefully. Sometimes shit just comes up. So we'll return for episode 51.5 to discuss the remainder of the characters. I really don't know how we went this long, but we covered a whole 4 new characters in 2 hours. So we're just blazing through these. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on, Buddytibo.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So long.
Like to a fucking T.
So they just hate him immediately.
Something I'd love to do with Constant is to have Fate.
You died again.
You're in a
kind of fill the same role, but with Constant just not having any of it. And
You just went into like the Lincoln Tunnel.
Of course. Did you just go in the closet for a second there?
Can you still not hear me?
No, we can, but it sounds like you're just.
I don't know what to do about that. I'm literally. This is so frustrating.
We'll keep telling you, and we'll keep. You can restate what you said, so Solitaire can edit it into something reasonable.
Basically,